Warning: the following review contains spoilers of a Sprite series that I will be reviewing. If you have not seen this series, I would recommend seeing the first episode at least, because there will be major spoilers for the whole season. You have been warned. Also, I will try to be constructive in this, but I will also be focusing on problems as well with this series. This series isn't perfect, no series is. And that's really all I'm going to say for this introduction. Let's start with my review. Hello everyone, it's Wave again. Now, if you saw by my channel background, you will know that I am going to be reviewing a Sprite series known as Captain Yanmega. Alright, so this series was created by Tellyzx, which if you've seen in my, well, you know, my moderator. If you've seen that, you know that he's pretty much in it. So, pretty much he's like my friend, basically. Now, even though I'm his friend, I will be reviewing his series, and I will also be reviewing Legends Hollywood Hotel, but that's not going to be for a while, given his hiatus I think he's planning. And with an announcement of a new season coming out in January, I might as well talk about my friend's first Sprite series and his first season. Alright, I will be dividing these into a few categories, such as animation, storytelling, audio, but no voice acting because he does the voices himself, and I will be giving a little mention, but it's not a major topic, characters, as well as anything picky, and villains, possibly. Okay, so, might as well start off with what makes the series, or something like this, important. The storytelling. Let's begin. In the fictional city of Pokemopolis, the father Yanma, the Yanmega in this case, the shiny one, has invented a new invention, the Evolutionizer. This one can evolve a Pokemon and make them change back to their original form, and three members of the family, one of them being a little Yanma known as Johnny Yanma, has decided he wants to take part in the experiment in the first episode, First Flight. However, a freak accident occurs, and as a result, he gets mixed in with a bunch of other DNA, but he still remains his Yanma self. As a result, he becomes a superhero known as Captain Yanmega, and tries to protect the city of Pokemopolis from the evils that is SOS Incorporated. This story may sound more like pretty much a fight or a superhero movie. However, then again, what's really wrong with that? There are a lot of superheroes out there that mimic another, but it was able to be done well. I will not write this story off as unoriginal because nothing in life is original. So I will not hop on the story, but I have to admit that for a first storyline involving a superhero show, this is actually pretty decent. However, there are some problems with it, which I'll be mentioning in the anything nitpicky section. The story is good, but it does have some problems with it. Mainly its plot holes. Ignoring the whole thing that involves a certain episode that happens around near the end of the series. In other words, episode 17, not the point. There are instances where it makes you wonder what is the point of these episodes, other than to give exposition. The story of SOS Incorporated is pretty much there to serve as the Sinistra Corps, and pretty much Johnny Yanma and his friends are the Green Lantern Corps. So yeah, the story is good, and I would probably give it around a 6 or 7 out of 10. Next up is animation. Like most series that are done on YouTube that involve Pokemon, Captain Yanmega is done in Microsoft PowerPoint. Is there any problem with that? Nope. Because you know what? It doesn't really change anything. The animation is good, and the settings are also really well done. You may argue what is the point of having this as a topic, but it pretty much just expresses, well, how do I put this nicely? It pretty much just expresses my opinion on... It's pretty much like, how do I put this nicely? It's pretty much like the graphics of a video game. How does it look? Well, I had to say that he actually does a pretty good job. It's not like something really crappy, be like some of the 3rd gen fags like myself do with their really shitty computers. My point is that this is actually very pleasing, and it actually makes me want to keep looking at it instead of clicking to another tab. Also, I have to admit is that he is pretty good with animation, as well as experimenting with different types of animations for Captain Yanmega's attacks. Animation is good. 8. Next subject is characters. I'll be talking about villains also in this, so let's go on. We have our main character, Johnny Yanma, who pretty much acts like the regular character of this type of series. He's a teenage Peter Parker, so to say. He's going through high school, talking to his friends, and pretty much doing what a regular high school kid would do, with superpowers. I would compare him to Spider-Man in a way, but there are certain differences between the two. For one, his family is alive, but that's not the point I'm trying to make. Okay. Captain has his problems, but he is still a teen, so he's obviously going to be having problems like this because he's growing up. I expect him to develop as the series goes on, especially with what happens in episode 17. I know I mentioned episode 17 a lot. I'll be mentioning that a lot more in this review. However, it's to set up something very surprising. The point I'm trying to make is that he is still a developing character. There's nothing really more to say, and I know he will develop because obviously he's the main character of this freaking franchise, or of the series, so to say. Amy is basically like the stereotypical, I'd name her an Orihime of the series, but she actually does serve a purpose. Not just to be Captain's possible love interest, but she actually does have moments of usefulness. Dustin's a party boy, so he will not be mentioned. My second favorite character out of all of them is Rex Vibrava, Johnny's closest friend. He pretty much acts like the nerd. He's pretty much like Johnny in a way, but he has certain differences, such as he doesn't have superpowers, or at least he used to, but he never. But that was only one instance. And he's actually a really hilarious character, to be honest, in my opinion. However, it doesn't save it from the other characters in the show, such as most of the members of SOS Incorporated, which I will discuss their major problem in a minute, and Raim, as well as Clyde and the Wormhole. Now, you may be wondering, why don't I mention these guys? That will bring up a point in a minute in the anything nitpicky section. Okay. The father and mother characters are also really minor characters since they rarely show up in this series, and that might be for a reason since it's mainly focused on the captain. Okay. We have our main rivals of the series, or at least for a few episodes. Roman Togekiss and Cliff Torterra. Cliff Torterra, spoiler warning, used to be Johnny's friend, but as he grew, he began to separate from him, as he either became stronger, which wouldn't surprise me, because most childhood friendships tend to split apart sometimes, because of something that happens when they grow up. I won't explain why he turned to a different side, because that would reveal a lot of Cliff's backstory. Basically, he's the main slash rival to the captain. As for Roman, he's just there to serve as time filler, and if I were to compare these two, I'd name them the Bulk and Skull of the series, except without comedic relief. What else to say? Raim is pretty much the Mary Jane of the series. She acts like the hero's love interest, and it seems like this for the series, and possibly the rest of it. The problem I find with Raim is that she doesn't really do much. She's like Mary Jane, but making her worse. She doesn't do much in terms of the series, and I know that's because she's supposed to be a really minor character, but it doesn't really save it from anything. I know, I keep bashing on the characters, but I will, but there are some good points about this. There aren't bad ones. But the problem is that they're few and far between. As of now, there are characters here that I like, and there are characters I don't like. Ignoring the Season 2 characters. As for the villains, we have SOS Incorporated, a group pretty much made, like I said in the beginning, as the Sinestro Corps of the series. Whereas Johnny, Captain Yanmega, and his friends as the Green Lantern Corps, so to say. However, the main one I think that has the most importance of the series, or the one that plays the biggest part, is Garchomp. I mean, granted, there's another certain member, but reveals too much. He's the main villain that is revealed in most of the series as his way to stop the captain. This is a character that acts more like Frieza/Cell from Dragon Ball because he's cocky and he's determined to kill the captain at all costs. Now, what about the other characters that serves as the teachers/owners/principal of the high school of Pokemetropolis? There is a problem with these characters, and I will mention these when we get to the anything petty section. However, I should probably talk about the as of now rival to Captain Yanmega, the one that was introduced a few episodes before the season finale, Kent Ariados. Kent Ariados was basically made to serve as the captain's main rival. I would make a Curio reference to the Curio from Pretty Cure, but I'm not going to do that. As of now, judging by the trailer, spoiler alert, it seems like he and Amy Fiona have a relationship. This is possibly true. I'm not spoiling anything. However, he kind of has this split personality between being friends with Johnny and his friends, but he also has this vendetta against Johnny because he was created to kill him. Yeah, it's kind of a complicated story, but the reason I don't have a problem with this character, because for the same reason I find the problem with Rex and Amy, is because he was introduced near the end of the series. I know that Telly is going to plan on developing Kent into a character instead of just serving as time filler. So there's nothing really much to say on him because pretty much we can just wait and see what happens. That pretty much takes care of all the characters for Season 1. I know this dragged, but yeah. The rest of the characters that I didn't mention are either minor characters or are characters that don't really serve much of a purpose. But I'm guessing that they will in the second season. Alright, let's talk about the audio. The opening theme song is Hero and Me from Dad Napped, and the ending theme has changed between the series, so you can't really decide on a main one. However, one of his first end credits was a song from Dragon Ball Kai, which I can't remember. Another one being pretty much one of the songs from Fairy Tail, and the list goes on. The audio I find to be decent, and judging by his music, he does use a lot of Dragon Ball music. I don't have a problem with that, as long as it fits the mood. Again, he did a good job on the audio section. Oh joy. So, pretty much I'd score the animation, the characters, and the audio at around a 7 or 8. Okay, now the anything petty section. And this could be making or break it, because these could either be nitpicks or actual faults. This will be the section that I cover these problems. Let's talk about them. First problem with the show is that the plot isn't really that original. I know I mentioned this when I talked about the story, but it needs to be addressed again. I don't understand the reason of having it go along the lines of pretty much send bad guy out and have it get killed. It's not only a rip-off, basically, of the Dragon Ball series, it also seems to rip off Power Rangers, ironically. No problem with that, but it's just a nitpick. And another thing I majorly have a problem with is that, do you see the problem here with the characters that I mentioned, compared to all the characters from the background for Season 2, minus the ones for the second season that'll be introduced? Compare that to the icon of my channel, which will be shown here. Do you see the characters there? The problem I find with it was that those were the only ones, in my opinion, that were memorable. I'm not saying that they did a piss poor job of doing these characters, but I'm just saying is that these were really the only characters that really did something in the series. Even Raim did something. Surprising. But I think a part of the reason why I included Raim was because of the whole Aviator Raim thing, but that's not the point. The problem I find with this first season is that you included a lot of characters that didn't serve a purpose. They haven't served a purpose other than for filler scenes, and they haven't really done anything majorly important. I can excuse Sock, I can excuse Cacturn, and I can excuse the blue and green Captain Yanmega because they are new characters that will be introduced. I don't have a problem with them. The problem I find with the rest of the characters is that you don't really do much of them except for showing them as filler villains. Seriously, I mentioned all the characters of SOS Incorporated, but the only one that was really memorable was Garchomp, because he did something. Dunsparce had one episode, Ariados was only used in one episode, he could be excused, and the rest of the characters didn't really do anything that was actually make me go like, yeah, I remember that guy. The problem is that you didn't really have them doing anything. It was just unmemorable. Aside from that nitpick, yeah. But I think another problem sorry to go off on a different topic here. I'm not trying to sound offensive, but this is probably going to be the biggest part where I address my flaws with them. The rest of them are the rest of the classmates from Pokemetropolis High School. Quilava, Ampharos, and Roman and Cliff, as well as Captain's parents. The problem with these characters is that you're not doing anything with them. I'm not saying that you have to extend the episode by having them like doing something like going to a store to make bread, but I can excuse the classmates because some of the episodes you make don't even have them at the school. Okay, fair enough. This is just a gripe I find with this. But with SOS Incorporated, if you're going to have them do something at least memorable. I mean, I can vaguely remember what Dunsparce did to Rex Vibrava in the Captain Flygon episode, but that was about it. Hypno didn't really do anything important. Mistress Vespiquen didn't do anything important. I think Principal Giratina is probably the most disappointing of all of them because he hasn't done anything. However, Arceus is actually the most interesting one in my opinion, actually. I shouldn't really go against what I said, but the point I'm trying to say is that with Arceus, even though he hasn't done anything, he's a character that looks like he's waiting in wait, that he's going to do something big. That's something I want to look forward to. But everyone else on in the corporation has done something, and that's it. One thing, they're done. Dunsparce has done like 3 things, but they weren't really memorable. I mean, granted, he did do that, but I was like, who's Dunsparce again? But, yeah. Any other minor gripes I have with the whole thing is, I think one of the last things I have to bitch about was the whole future episode. I think what am I trying to say is that I think one of the major problems you made with that episode was that it just served as exposition saying, oh crap, Johnny has to kill all the SOS Incorporated members, or at least defeat them. And like, well, isn't that kind of what he's doing? Plus, it also seems like a real cop-out because how is it that the captain can kick their asses every episode, and yet they end up winning? How the hell does that work again? Anyway, I know you're expecting me to bitch about Kensa, good and evil split, but honestly, like I said before, I don't have anything to complain about. He is just there near the end of the series. Rain, like I said, serves as a big damsel in distress, and I don't think she's really going to do much for the rest of the series. She just seems like a spoiled brat. Anyway, that's all I'm really going to say for nitpicks. Well, I would say something about Cliff, but spoilers. I'm not going to say anything more. So that's all I'm really going to say about anything nitpick, so I'm going to leave it at that. Now, just to move on to my final thoughts on this. My final thoughts on Captain Yanmega Season 1 is that I am anticipating a second season. I am really looking forward to this. However, the problems I find with Captain Yanmega Season 1 are that, minus the filler episodes you had, as well as characters that didn't do anything and might as well have been worthless to the series, SOS Incorporated only really having 2 things memorable about it, as well as the whole characters problem, as well as other things that I can't spoil. This is actually a pretty good season. I am looking forward to the second season, because any bad show would have just made me turn it off and not watch another season of it. But this trailer got me excited for it. If you haven't seen the first trailer of it, I would really recommend going out and checking it out, if you want to get interested in seeing the series. Final thoughts on Captain Yanmega is that this is actually a pretty decent sprite series, and it's a good break from the total Pokemon videos that you made on this channel. I have to give you credit for that. This is a good season, and judging by what happens in the second season, I eagerly await it. My final score of Captain Yanmega is a 7.5 out of 10. You may be arguing, why give him just that? Well, the problem with Captain Yanmega is that part of the point of a series involving these superheroes going around is the characters and storyline. And if the characters aren't given much to do, why should I care about it? However, it is good animation and a very good story, and characters that are still developing, but this is pretty much like the rocky start. I mean, it's going to be rocky. I mean, your first season of your Pokemon series was rocky. A lot of people's first attempts are. The reason I bitched about your characters so much is because this season is kind of like the first chapter of a book. If you're going to introduce all these characters, you have to pretty much do something to make us care about them. Otherwise, they're just scene filler. It's like introducing us. Okay, let's take Final Crisis, for example. Imagine if they started us off at the climax, or one of the climaxes of the scene, where Batman is sent back in time by Darkseid. People would be confused and wondering, wait, what? How did he get sent back to the past? The problem with this is that, why should we care about these characters if you're only including them for scene filler? What makes us want to care about these characters? That's the point I'm trying to make. With this Quilava, I know from the prom episode, or the dance episode, that she went on a date with Rex Vibrava. Is that all you're going to really have? Aside from her being in a clique? Anyway, but this, like I said, was your first season. I know you're going to do well with the second season when it comes out in possibly January, depending on when that happens. Now, I do want to make a final mention on this ending of the first season, is that it doesn't end on a happy note. It's a pretty depressing one. I had to admit that I was like really surprised in it. So yeah, pretty much, if this video didn't inspire you to go out and check out this series, I would recommend checking it out just for like a one-time view or anything. Just ignore the fact that it's related to Pokemon or something. And you may be wondering, why didn't I talk about the voices? Well, here's the thing. I didn't want to really bring that up because there wasn't really much to say. It's just voice acting in a show about superheroes. The voice acting can range from decent to okay. But then again, he's the one person who's only doing these voices. He's just doing it for fun. The reason I just made this video was to try something different. I mean, Loudon has his commentators under review series, and pretty much it's all over the place for different types of reviews, so I figured, why not just review a Sprite series? Midnight Prime left doing Sprite commentary, so I figured I might as well try and pick up the pieces, except do a review of it. Now, my next review of a Sprite series, I don't know actually. I know I'll be reviewing his 4th season of Pokemon Legends, but that's not going to be for a while. If you have any requests for any Sprite series, Pokemon or not, for me to do, send me a request in the comments or PM me. Sorry. And I'll take it. Or at least I have to look it up first. Like I said, Captain Yanmega is a decent series, but it's the first season. It can do better. So as of now, this series pretty much is a B- to C Sprite series. 70%. It's not too bad. Well, 75%, but you get my points. That's all I'm really going to say, so this is Wave signing off. And don't worry, guys, I will be making that Pokemon Black and White review. Don't worry. I just need some time to, after what happened with my old channel, or my new channel, whatever, and I've been a little backed up. But don't worry, guys, I will be doing that review as well as I'll be reviewing a movie. I just have to wait until after a certain incident passed. So I'll see y'all later.